All right, everyone, we are back for episode 74 of Stub Luv Live. I have Adam Feil here. We're going to talk about Negro League tickets. Man, he's got some great stuff. Rare stuff, and I'm excited to have him on.
Thank you, Howard. You know, I've been a big fan.
We got to get the intro. Got to get the intro. Let's run. All right. So we almost missed the intro there, Adam, but we got to get the intro in for you.
Absolutely.
So before you jump on, I'm so happy to have you on. Tom Daly and I, we've talked so much about your collection and what you post on Instagram. And, you're one of those guys that a lot of people don't know about. You're kind of hidden in the shadows. And I tried getting you on as a guest and you said no. And I tried again and you said no. And then I think I just finally broke you down. So I'm happy to have you.
I was waiting for the Mets to get eliminated from playoff contention. And here we are. I got a free night. So this is
Yeah, I know. So you're 18th and Vine on Instagram. And you've got a lot of cool stuff that's posted there. The focus of your ticket collecting is Negro League tickets.
Yes.
And you've got some bangers. So kind of before we get to show off all the gold and all the good stuff, because you've got some great ones, tell us a little bit about how you got started collecting tickets.
Sure. We chatted a little bit about this, when we spoke over the last couple of days. So this has been a long stretch, probably about 25, 30 years ago. I don't know if you remember a store in Cooperstown on Main Street called the National Pastime. And for any collector out there, it was, I want to say one of the preeminent shops in the country. So that, sort of founded I have two verticals of collecting. One are old vintage baseball gloves, which I probably started first, but around the same time, they had in their store, and I recall this, it was a New York Black Yankee ticket. It said Negro League Baseball. And I remember at the time, that was when, back on Long Island, some of these card shows, you had, some of the Negro League players were still around and they were doing signings and so forth. So that was sort of, an introduction into it. And then I remember seeing this ticket and it's sort of a catalyzing, moment, because here you have, it's like never before, I think, had I seen, a dedicated ticket or a segregated ticket like this. And it was, it really struck a chord. And because it's such a great piece of history, look now, Major League Baseball's done a great job, the last 15, 20 years about, bringing into the foray of collectors and so forth. But, people didn't know a lot about, Jackie and Satch, I shouldn't say Jackie, but Satch and all the players that came, before Jackie. And like I said, everyone knows, Jackie is a cultural moment. But people didn't know, who the founders were before him. Whose shoulders did he step on to get to his moment? So it's, it's just a great, tremendous piece of history. And so that was sort of, the moment in time that I started, okay, look, this is a great piece, great area to really look into. So, as you go through auction catalogs and so forth, and it's a slow drip on these tickets.
It's a real slow drip on those tickets.
You can go years without seeing them, and at the same time, you get you get lucky and get 6 or so in a few months. So, my initial collecting, and then I had like a Ruth Called Shaw ticket, and I had a couple of the other good ones, but I sold those off. But the Negro League ones I've never sold, so I've kept collecting, and then from within there, little pockets of interest have grown.
Yeah. So you told me when we were talking that you actually probably picked that first ticket up about 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yep. Little less. Yeah. It's been a ways. So, and yeah, ever since then, just growing the collection.
So you said a couple of things to me on the phone, and I wrote them down because I thought they were just phenomenal stats and phenomenal I would say homages to what you do, homages to what you do. There is a bigger pop on PSA's Pop Report of the called shot ticket than there is a population of all of the Negro League tickets combined.
It's pretty close. Absent. So about 10 years ago, there was one sale of a catalog of tickets that were all dedicated to the Hilldale Daisies. And it was 3 years, and it was probably about 150 tickets. And so that was for one group. But outside of that, I mean, I don't think I've seen 150 anywhere. So if you remove that, definitely. But if, including that, you probably have a few more. But by and large, I mean, it's an incredibly thin population.
And then I think you were saying, and this is funny, it was just, in my opinion, so remarkable what we were talking about. I said to you, you've got some great Jackie Robinson tickets. Are you going to bring on the Jackie Major League debut ticket? You're like, nah, I'm not going to bring it on. You've had people on the show that have it, and it's just another Jackie Robinson debut ticket. And oh, by the way, out of all of my tickets, that's the highest pop ticket. Why would I want to show that one?
It's crazy to think about. Literally, I was thinking about that today. That wasn't the case 10 years ago, but over time, it's like all these items, like I said, there are a lot of 101s or 102s or 103s max. It's like, I probably know of the collection, maybe 3 that have, pop 3s. So it's a thin inventory out there.
And I think you were talking a little bit before, you went to the Hall of Fame, you were able to pick up that first ticket. You would go to shows, the Hofstra show. You'd meet some of the former Negro League players. I did too when I was a kid. I remember Cool Papa Bell when he was alive. He would be at shows. I would see Judy Johnson at shows. You'd see Buck O'Neil at shows. You'd see a lot of the guys. And then of course, you'd see some of the lesser known names. They would all be there signing. And it was just phenomenal to get to see them and talk to them and, reminisce with them. So I just wasn't as smart as you to start focusing in on tickets back then. I was just getting stuff signed.
No, there's a lot of luck, but I've always been, when I was a kid, I used to save my tickets, stuff and so forth. And, they don't make them anymore, unfortunately, but
yeah,
it's, that's sort of like, look, it's a great piece of history. And, I know I'm not going to blow your question later on about, stubs versus full tickets, but I love that, keeping that momentum from the game. It's fantastic. I love knowing that someone went to this game and saw these players there.
Yeah. It really is. And I thought what you sent me in the way of photographs of, some of these tickets, I just can't wait to show them off. So let's kind of start out a little bit, if we could. I'm going to try to add one in.
Apropos.
Yeah, right. So talk a little bit about this ticket and some of the ones that we're going to show. This is a genre of what? Negro League World Series tickets.
Negro League World Series tickets. And, one of the nuances or challenges of Negro League tickets, too, is that they would play games at parks that wouldn't necessarily say, hey, Kansas City Monarchs on it or Negro League ticket and so forth. And you'll see that, with one of my Jackie stubs, too, is you have to do some research around these. And, this was found in, originally there was a binder of tickets that, again, this is, one of the big ones that, had probably had 150 tickets and so forth, but they had, this is the first ticket to the first Negro League World Series game ever, 101 years ago. So it's a great piece of history. And, you look at how scarce, the MLB, game ones are and so forth. And they probably have pop 3, maybe. And I said, this is, I've never seen another one of these for game 1. So it's a great piece of history.
Adam, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but just curious. I mean, what do you think a ticket like this goes for if it's put in an auction today?
It's a great question. I think this one in particular would get a lot of press because it's the first game to the first Negro League World Series ever.
Yeah.
But I just don't know how deep the pool of buyers is. So I think like for one like this, it would be, I think it'd probably be 5 figures. Look, if I'm a buyer, I think this is an irreplaceable item. So, I would probably think even higher than that. But, It's out a minimum 5 figures, probably mid 5 figures. And, there was one that traded at Hunt Auction in the spring. But the issue was it can't be verified by PSA because there's no, dedicated information about the ticket on there. So that one traded, I think, for about 15,000, maybe 15 to 20, give or take. My sense is that this would trade higher. So
Tom Daly says he thinks 6 figures.
I like it, Tom.
Not that you're selling it, Adam, but I got to be honest with you. I think Tom's right there. If someone asked me, I'd say 75 to 125. And if someone said to me it got 150, I would not be surprised. But I would absolutely not at all be surprised at 100.
No, I agree. And, there's always the question of what it's worth versus what people pay for it. And look, I agree. I think this is one of the scarcer items, Negro League items out there. And I think there's a wide enough audience for World Series tickets and Negro League items and so forth. So it's, I think, look, I've never seen any, Negro League ticket approach that, but you never know if this is, the right audience and the right marketing and so forth. It could. It's
the first, Adam. Yeah. I mean, it's the first. And there's I've never seen another one. I mean, TJ is online, says he thinks 6 figures is right on the money too. So, I think it is. I think it is in that neighborhood. And I think it's an amazing ticket. You have, and I've seen some World Series, Negro League World Series tickets. They're usually proofs where they don't have a date or there's something wrong with the ticket from the collector standpoint. All of yours are the right tickets. There's a seat to it. There's a date on it. What's this one, Adam? So this one is, I sort of bookended, what I showed you is that one was the first. This is from the last one prior to integration. So, this was in September of 1946. And this is right before, Jackie broke the official MLB color barrier. Yeah. I mean, again, with that element of this, Adam, I don't know. I mean, I think this is just super, super collectible. I mean, it tells its own story, and it's pre-Jackie. It is. It's right on that cusp, and which is, look, that from a collecting standpoint, this is where a lot of collectors focus their energies. The interesting, the Negro Leagues, they didn't have a World Series every single year, but it's that area, that time frame around Jackie, which garners a lot of interest, deservedly so. So this is what look. We chatted about. Funny, we chatted about some things prior to the show, and this is also a time frame where people are still around from. And they can remember this. So it's it's an important time in baseball history and cultural history. Yeah, I mean, I have to tell you, Adam. I mean, I've had a lot of guests on this show, and I thank everyone for coming on. I love the show because we get to expose collectors like you, and they get to show off what they collect and what they love and what they're passionate about. And I have to be candid with you, Adam. I mean, the stuff that you showed me. I mean, it blew me away. And I've had Mark Mader on, and I mean, I've had Eric Zitter on a couple of times. I've had Sean Doherty on. I mean, I've had, Scott Foraker on. They've got amazing collections, but candidly, Adam, some of the stuff that you showed me, I mean, it's so rare and it's so important culturally, socially to this country. It's just phenomenal. So before I Tom asked this from that last ticket we put up, how many Hall of Famers would be in that game, do you think? It's a great question. Tom asked good questions. You had Monty Irvin. You had Satchel. You got a handful for sure. Definitely had a handful. It's funny because there'll be a ticket. I don't know if you're going to show it later. The 31 Homestead Grays, but I know there were 6 in that one. So that one, but this one, my guess is probably a parallel number. Yeah, it's crazy. So I want to go ahead and show this one too. I mean, I just love this ticket. I mean, it just screams vintage, and I mean, it says Colored World Series Classic. Like, it's not supposed to say that. It's like taboo in today's society, but yet it's so prominent on the ticket. It's at Yankee Stadium. I mean, it's $1.50. Adam, tell me.
No, so there's a second. So what's interesting about this was a 3-part series. One of the games was ultimately not played. So I had the 2 that were played. And the first one, I believe, occurred on September 9th of 1934, and it was a doubleheader. I don't know if it was 2 games or it was 1, but you had, so it was Satchel pitched. I think Satchel pitched both of these. And what's interesting about these this is more of a marketing aspect. These were not, in fact, World Series tickets. So the first 2 that I showed you were World Series tickets. This is color World Series. This is more, of a marketing ploy and some showmanship to generate interest and so forth. But, this harkens back to the days of, this is relatively early Gibson. Gibson came up just a few years prior to this. You had, Slim Jones was at his peak in 34. You had, Josh and so forth. Oscar Charleston was, playing. So this is, we may have been retired by then. But, this is, just, and what's great too, these are played at Yankee Stadium. So this is, these were among the earliest games. I think that the September 9th game was Satchel's first game at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah. I mean, these things are they just scream historic. And I've never seen a lot of these before. So here, TJ is online. He went ahead and he says, in the 1946 Negro League World Series, 7 players in the Baseball Hall of Fame participated. So thank you, TJ. I mean, that's great information. I mean, it's phenomenal.
That is. And look, it goes to show you too, we'll talk about the 33 ticket later on, but I mean, the level of talent in these games was incredible. It's astounding. And, a lot of these things too, we'll talk about this, a lot of folks and collectors, look, again, deservedly so, are focused on the World Series tickets and the East-West Classic, which were their all-star games, and Jackie and Josh and Satch. But there are so many tickets too, to ballparks folks have never heard of and teams people haven't heard of, which is a great part of, Black baseball history and, the Negro Leagues, because it shows you how deep of a talent pool that there was. And there are a lot of players that just people don't know about. It's a great research area.
Yeah, for sure. Here's another one of those tickets.
Yeah, so this is the first game that happened on September 9th, and then the second one happened a little bit later.
Again, just screams historic. I just love these tickets. This one I thought was really cool too, Adam. Talk to me about this one, because this is phenomenal.
So you'll notice the parallel on this. I mean, is there something else that strikes a chord here? This is the first year of the MLB All-Star Game, and the Negro Leagues held their first one that fall. And I think there were 33,000 at this game. But what's amazing is I think in 1934, 34-35, the Negro League game outdrew the MLB game.
Wow.
And again, this was, a star-studded event, but this is, again, I've only seen one of these, the 33 All-Star Game tickets. This is one of the ones I was looking for a while. I managed to get it a few years back, but this is, again, another piece of history. So this is the first Negro League, All-Star Game.
I know you said it's a slow drip, Adam. How slow is it? I mean, what's been the patches in time from acquiring one to acquiring the next? I gotta believe big patches of time.
Big patches. I mean, easily have been north of 12 months, if not between a year or two. Sometimes, like I said, it can be a long time. And it's funny because when they come out, typically it's a collector that might be selling a few at a time. So that's how you may be able to procure multiple ones. But a lot of times it is a slow individual drip. And like I said, this year, Hunt's had a bunch in their spring auction, and a couple others have popped up here and there. But it's just, and look, those are the fortunate days. But I said it can go a long, long time. And look, even longer for other items. I have a few programs, and I mean, again, years between those. I mean, I was able to get a couple Satchel programs probably about a decade ago, and I don't know if I've seen any since. He was on the cover. We'll get to some of the tickets later on, but you just don't. This stuff is just, it's slow.
Very tough. Yeah, very, very tough. So I guess you can't really talk about the Negro Leagues and talk about this genre of ticket collecting without talking about Jackie Robinson.
Yes.
And I mean, I was speechless when you talked to me about this ticket. I was speechless. Tell everyone what this is.
So this is a ticket. I think Jackie played. Was it 34 or 54 games when he played for the Kansas City Monarchs? It wasn't a high number. And this is a game for Kansas City Monarchs versus Chicago American Giants that took place at Comiskey Park back in 1945. So this was when he was playing in the Negro Leagues. Again, there's no descriptor on here that says Kansas City Monarchs, Jackie Robinson, and so forth. This is one of the ones where you had to do some homework, and this came up. So this is again, you go through, you see all the Jackie tickets, come up. I have another one too from that year, and it's a Newark Eagles ticket when they play the Eagles. But I love this one again because there's no front and center. This required a bit of research.
And when did you pick this ticket up, Adam? Have you had this for a long time?
No, this one was in the last 2 years. This is a more recent one.
And is this something that you just happened to spy on eBay and you knew and someone didn't know, or how'd you manage this?
I think this one actually someone had done some work on it and said what it was, and then I went back and verified and so forth. And I'm like, yeah, sure enough. So wow. Yeah, this is I like this one a lot.
Yeah, I mean when you're talking about Negro Leagues and Jackie playing in the Negro Leagues, it's just
it's one season. I mean, that's all he had there.
Yes.
So it's
phenomenal. And now this one, honestly, Adam, I got to tell you, we laughed a little bit because of the recent history of this ticket that just kind of showed up on eBay a little bit and then went into a Beckett holder and then wound up, I guess, into an auction and sold. But yours is not that one. Yours is the better one, the real one, the authentic. Tell everyone what this is.
It's got the date on it. So this is Jackie's first game in the minor leagues that took place in Jersey City. And, you mentioned Tom. Tom might have my favorite version of it, but this is again, this, you have Jackie's debut ticket in the major leagues. And I think this rivals this in importance. And it was great. It took place in our relative backyard. So it's great.
How many do you think you've seen with the date in your 30 years of doing this?
With the date on, I think I've only seen 2.
Yeah.
I think I've seen 4 total, and I think 2 have the date, including mine, and then 2 I think do not have the date. I mean, give or take 1, but this is a thin pop.
Right. Because I think there was one that was a full, that PSA slab that did not have the date, but it's an old slab.
That's it. So that's the first one I ever saw that came to market. Again, that's probably 10, 12 years ago. And then there was a second one that came immediately, shortly thereafter, which did have the date. And then this originally came to auction unslabbed. And then about a year later, it came slabbed, which again, so that's, and I said, I haven't seen, we saw the one that hit up, within the last few months, which is interesting, but give or take, that's what I know.
Yeah, I think Tom's right. I mean, I've seen yours. I think I've seen 2 that are undated. And again, with it being undated, no guarantee that it was from the 46 opening day. It could have been a year before, a couple years before. So yeah, I mean, there's really no way to say that for sure. So I guess yours and maybe the other one that you've seen that's dated, those are really, in my opinion, the only really 2 that count.
Yeah, it's like it's in any case, it's a small pop out there. So, but again, what's interesting about this one, I think in this particular game they issued more because it was such a big event. They issued more tickets than they had seats for it. So, but again, you just haven't seen many come to market. Yeah,
you really haven't. This is a phenomenal ticket. I mean, this is what I love to put this into my collection. I got to tell you, I really would. I pulled this photo because I thought it was pretty cool. I'm going to add this one up. Talk talk to us a little bit about these tickets, Adam, because these were both very cool.
What I love about this is, like I said, as you yourself, you go through collecting, you start to develop themes or items that you find, very interesting or important. And this was a game, this was Satchel's, again, first game. I believe this was his first game at Yankee Stadium he ever pitched.
Yeah.
And then this was his first and only start at Yankee Stadium as a major leaguer. So, you split, look, Satch pitched forever, but there's a 15-year gap between here. And it's I think it's a great piece of interesting part of history.
It really is. I mean, it's just, it doesn't get much better than this. It's as good as it gets. You've got two really super rare tickets, and then you've paired them up here, and it means a whole heck of a lot.
It does. And, I don't know, you may show it later on. But the other, fascinating note, which I just learned, in the last few months, was the last professional baseball game that was ever played at Ebbets Field was a Negro League game. And it was in 1950, I think was it 59, 57, 59? But Satchel Paige pitched in it. So wow. The last game ever at Ebbets.
How long have you owned these tickets, do you believe?
My guess is the first one probably 10 years or so, and the other one within the last 2 years, last year or two.
So you're finding stuff and you're actually going out there and buying this stuff. So good for you.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead. You've got a great one here. Let me get rid of this and show these two, because I thought these were really, really cool. Tell us a little bit about these, Adam, because the one with the picture of Satch is very, very cool.
What's great about, you think about all-time historic ball players, and I think a case has to be made that, people talk about Ruth, Ohtani, and so forth, but in terms of the showman and the importance for the game, think about this. This was, early 1940s. There's no integration in baseball. Civil rights movement hadn't even really started yet. And here you have Satchel Paige. Maybe you had, you had Ruth and Gary barnstorming and some Dizzy D and so forth. But here you had dedicated tickets, and their selling point is, a Negro League pitcher. And it's, you have the first one is great, again, Satchel Paige in broad letters. The second one was the Red Sox versus the Kansas City Monarchs, and that was, the Red Sox that was the black baseball team. And then the last one was a bus pass, actually, and I had the program for this as well, but advertising the game, the July 4th game. And this is, they have a famous poster with this, and that's one of my favorite baseball images. Good look, because it's so iconic, because that was his windup. So those are, in terms of Satchel Paige tickets, these are some of my favorites.
Anything with Satchel's name, his face, his image. They're just all so cool, Adam. I just love these things. And again, I think everyone has to kind of think about this. I think there's, I think there's some people that say, well, if I can't get these things slabbed by PSA or Beckett, I'm not going to collect them. And I'm like, well, then you're stupid, because these are really amazing items. And I don't need a piece of plastic over them to make them what they are. These just scream history, Adam, and they're phenomenal.
Thank you. Now, look, I 100% agree with you. And, one of the things I think that, that I've spoken with Tom about is, the writing on these tickets. PSA will either, put MK on it and so forth. And, a lot of times you'll have writing on a lot of the back of these tickets and so forth. I got this one from Hinchcliffe Stadium, and it has the full owner's name, scrolled out in the back and so forth. And I love these little pieces of history, because it just adds color that, this person went to these games and saw this action.
It's great. It just adds the provenance to it. We haven't talked a lot about this player, and it's interesting because he's fairly mythical when it comes to the Negro Leaguers. He's considered the Black Babe Ruth, maybe better than Babe Ruth. Died very young, tragically, kind of, with brain disease and cancer. And, you think about just the career, but you don't find a lot of his autographs. There's not a lot of baseball cards for him, not a lot of memorabilia. And if anyone finds it, it never comes out of a private collection because it's just so rare. And Adam, when you showed me this,
I
was like, whoa. So tell us who that player is and tell us what this is.
So this is the ticket that has the 6 Hall of Famers on the Homestead Grays. And, I've seen different accounts of their record that year, but it was, I've seen 139 wins, 159 wins. And this is one of the Grays that year were one of the all-time great baseball teams ever in history. And that's Josh Gibson, who you're referencing. What's cool about this one is, Gibson had come up, within a year or two of this ticket. And so this is one of the earliest, ticket associated with Gibson I've ever seen. But Oscar Charleston actually hit a home run in this game. So, this had Judd Wilson, this had Oscar Charleston, this had, again, Josh, Satchel, young Satchel. Look, Satchel came up in the 20s, but this is, one of his earliest tickets too. So this is this is a great Grays ticket.
I'll say this to you, Adam, as many great ticket collectors that I've had on this show, and I know and I associate with, and there are some dynamite ones. I have yet to have someone show me a Josh Gibson ticket, something where Josh Gibson played.
Yeah.
And this ticket, this pass, whatever this is, I dig it. I like it. And I don't think we'll ever see another one.
No, there are, I have some tickets and so forth. Again, look, the East-West All-Star games he played in, folks have tickets to, or maybe the World Series and so forth. But what I like about these two, I don't know if you'll show them later on, but, finding the individual game tickets, because look, there was, people went to all these games, but, the individual tickets to a lot of these stadiums are just incredibly, incredibly rare. So you'll see, some East-West game tickets pop up, and again, some of the later World Series tickets, but for the most part, you just don't see the individual game tickets, which I love.
Yeah. And I'd say this, Adam, in the right auction right now,
yeah,
I don't know what this goes for, but it goes for a lot. And I think a lot of people would have significant interest in a lot of the tickets that you showed tonight.
Yeah, the Gibson, connection has really escalated everything in the last 5 years. Gibson stuff is almost, borderline untouchable nowadays, but it's insane.
You just don't find it. You
don't. And look, it's a long time coming, but you just, like you said, you just don't see it.
So it's funny. I just looked up at the clock because I have a little clock that goes here. And it says we've been talking for already 32 minutes.
There you go.
So it's pretty cool. I like to try to keep these in the 30 to 40 minute range. Sure. So we've shown a lot of great stuff. You're on Stub Luv Live, so I've got to run the gauntlet with you. Sure. So we've shown a whole lot of cool stuff. I'm blown away. I'm going to watch this episode back myself for sure. But I want to go ahead and I want to run the gauntlet with you. So we got to start out stub or full.
Stub for sure.
I knew that.
There are not many full Negro League tickets, so stub for sure.
We knew that one from the very beginning. I think I know the answer to this one too. PSA, Beckett, or no slab at all?
No slab at all. Maybe one day I'll send it in. I've never sent a ticket in, so it's maybe one day. But look, and I understand the case for it. So, absolutely. But I just, like I said, for items like this, I just don't need them.
Yeah, I agree. So Tom has a little addition to the gauntlet for you. I think it's good. We're going to throw it up there. Stub with writing.
I like the writing. I honestly, writing, it's so funny you asked that because as a glove collector, I don't like, I used to hate ink on the gloves. I wanted them, perfect. And then over time, it adds a little bit of, again, character to it because you link it to a person. So, I don't know if I have a preference to say, but, ink does not bother me on tickets at all.
Yeah. It's funny because I really have a lot of respect for Scott Foraker. I love the guy. He's such a good dude. And we were talking just a little bit ago and Scott was like, yeah, I have this Gretzky debut ticket and it's got all this writing on the back. He's like, and I love it. He's like, it was there. It was in the game. Someone was watching. It's provenance. And I really didn't think about it that way, but I think he's right.
100%. It's a great, it adds to the history of it.
Yep, I agree. So debuts or moments?
It's debuts or moments?
You can say both.
Look, I like both. Again, from a collecting standpoint, I'd probably say look, debuts have caught fire, as we know.
Yeah.
So, from an investing standpoint, I might say that. But look, the moments, again, it was funny. We touched on something prior to the show. I think the iconic moments will continue to, they'll always have an audience. But I love the moments too, but I also love these individual aspects too. So I'm sort of a little bit of both.
That's fine. And I know there's not a lot of signed Negro League tickets, but signed tickets or unsigned tickets. I think you're probably going to go unsigned. I'll
go unsigned, but to these. So it's funny. I have two signed tickets. One is Jesse Owens. So when Pittsburgh Crawfords ran into some trouble. In the 1937 season, a bunch of Negro Leaguers, went down to the Dominican Republic, and when they came back, they sort of altered the game a little bit. But so the Pittsburgh Crawfords had a little bit of stress, and then they moved to Toledo. And Jesse Owens of Olympic fame bought into it, the consortium. So I have a Jesse Owens signed Toledo Crawfords ticket, and then I have a Buck Leonard signed Pittsburgh Crawford Greenleaf Field ticket.
Very cool.
I like both. I don't have, like I said, they're few and far between. I've seen a Gibson signed ticket that went to auction a while back. You just don't see them often. So I'll split the middle. I'll say either. I have, but I don't have many signed tickets.
Yeah. So I was going to say this, if you had the chance to get a Satchel Paige debut ticket or a Josh Gibson debut ticket, which would you take?
I'd go Josh. Look, I'd go. So I've only seen one Paige ticket surface, and I think over time more will surface. I think both are. So I should say MLB. I've only seen one to MLB.
Yep.
The Negro League. Either. Both would be needle in haystacks.
Never to be found.
Likely not. No.
Yeah, and I know who has that Satchel Paige debut ticket, MLB debut ticket, and he got very lucky. He's a great collector, and it's in the right hands because he deserves it.
That's great.
So good for him. Do you think that we're going to find more Negro League World Series tickets in the future, or Jackie Robinson minor league tickets in the future?
Now, Jackie Minor debut tickets or Jackie Minor?
Just tickets.
So what's interesting is, where I think you will see tickets. So, post integration, Jack, there were still, Negro League All-Star games and so forth going on. So I think those will surface.
Yeah.
And you'll still see some from time to time, but I think you'll probably see more Jackie just because there are more eyeballs in that space.
Yeah. Do you think because of the history of Jackie Robinson, it's being taught in every school, everyone knows about Jackie? I mean, do you think the Negro Leagues, people are they going to be lost to history, or because of Jackie, are teachers and professors and the community going to want to preserve that time period and those games in that league?
I hope they do. And like I said, Major League Baseball has done a good job recently of exposing that. But, I will say, I've worked with a couple museums about displays and so forth. And I don't want to say sadly, but the focus is on Jackie and, key moments as opposed to putting, some of the more obscure Negro League tickets out there. And I said, look, this whole story needs to be told. It's not just, again, Jackie transcends everything. But all these players were key cogs in that wheel. So my hope is that all the Negro Leagues come to the forefront and, all the way back to the 1800s, when black baseball there weren't the Negro Leagues per se.
Yeah. Well, Adam, you've done a great job preserving that and helping that along. Adam, I got to tell you, it was a pleasure to talk to you before we got on the show. It was a pleasure having you on the show. I'm so excited that we've made this connection. I hope one day you'll come back on and show us some of your more recent pickups and show us what else you've got.
I would love to. No, thank you so much. This has been fantastic and an honor.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you for coming on. Episode 74 with Adam Feil. I thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for everyone for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel, and we're going to get out of here.
Awesome. Thanks.